Hello everyone. In today's session, we will focus on Article 11 of the URDG, covering the topic of amendment. So let's get started. So point number A says, if the guarantor receives instruction to amend an existing guarantee, for example, to change its amount, or if it is a change in expiry date, or whether the terms are getting changed, but for any reason they are not willing or they are not able to issue the amendment, then they must immediately inform the party who gave them the instructions. So as per point B, amendment without beneficiary's agreement is not binding on the beneficiary. If guarantor issues an amendment at the request of the applicant or instructing party, for that amendment to become effective, the beneficiary must agree to it. Means the beneficiary is not forced to accept any amendment unless they explicitly agree. But the guarantor is irrevocably bound by the amendment once they issued it, unless and until the beneficiary rejects the amendment. That means once the guarantor issues the amendment, it becomes irrevocable. The guarantor cannot take it back, they are bound by its terms. However, this binding effect is conditional. If the beneficiary letter rejects the amendment, then it's not binding on the beneficiary, and the guarantor's obligation goes back to the original terms. Practically, what it says, for beneficiaries, they can choose whether to accept or reject an amendment. If they reject it, the original guarantee remains unchanged. But for the guarantors, once they issue an amendment, they must comply with it unless the beneficiary rejects it. So let's take an example. Um, Suppose original guarantee amount is 1 lakh rupees and applicant wants to reduce it to rupees 80,000. So applicant goes to the guarantor and request to issue an amendment reducing the amount to rupees 80,000. So guarantor issues an amendment reducing the amount to rupees 80,000. Until the beneficiary responds, the guarantor treats the amended amount rupees 80,000 as valid. If the beneficiary accepts, the change is finalized. If the beneficiary rejects, the amended is invalid and the original amount is rupees 1 lakh is valid. So according to point C, if the original guarantee already contains specific rules about how amendments are to be accepted or rejected, then those rules take priority. And here also the beneficiary has the freedom to reject an amendment at any point as long as they haven't already accepted it or done something that implies acceptance. It means the beneficiary can reject an amendment at any time until they explicitly accept it, like they have to send a written confirmation for that, or they use the guarantee under the amended terms, like they can make a demand that relies on the amended terms. For example, the amendment extends the expiry date by 30 days if the beneficiary submit a demand after the original expiry but within the extended period, that is acceptance of the amendment. So once they do either of these, they can no longer reject the amendment. So for understanding this particular point, let's take an example. So a buyer gets a bank guarantee for rupees 1 lakh to ensure payment to a seller So seller is a beneficiary here. Later, the bank amends the guarantee to reduce it to rupees 80,000 at the buyer's request. So what can the sellers do? So there is a three condition. Um, First is seller can reject the amendment. Second is seller can accept the amendment, and third is seller do nothing. So we'll take first option, when seller reject the amendment. So the seller can ignore the change or formally reject it in writing. Result, the original rupees 1 lakh guarantee stays valid and the seller can still claims under it. According to second point, seller can accept the amendment explicitly or by action. So if the seller sends a document in that they have mentioned that they have accepted the reduction to rupees 80,000, they can no longer reject it. Or if they make a demand for rupees 80,000 instead of rupees 1 lakh, they have implied acceptance. So the result is the 80,000 rupees amendment now applies and the seller loses the right to claim the original rupees 1 lakh. So third point is like they do nothing, they are silence upon it. So if the seller doesn't respond, the amendment does not apply and the original rupees 1 lakh guarantee remains in force. So next is point D. As per point D, whenever the beneficiary accepts or rejects the amendment, the advising party must promptly inform to the guarantor. So this will help to keep the amendment process transparent and efficient. Next is point E. As per this point, a beneficiary cannot pick and choose part of an amendment to accept. It's all or nothing. Either the entire amendment is accepted or it is rejected entirely. For an example, an amendment includes increasing the guarantee amount from rupees 1 lakh to rupees 1 lakh 20,000. And there is another request extending the expiry date from uh, 30th July to 31st of August. The beneficiary says, we accept the increase amount, but we do not agree to the new expiry date extension. So this is a partial acceptance. So it is treated as a rejection of the whole amendment. Now moving on to the final point, point F, which says that any amendment that says this amendment will automatically apply unless you reject it by so and so date or any specific time is given, that is invalid and must be ignored. This kind of clause is not valid under the rule of URDG 758. It must be ignored or disregarded. So with this, we have completed Article 11. If you have any questions or doubts, feel free to leave them in the comment box. Thank you.